Good day, fellow tech connectors. We're here with Darlington Akogo, and he's with minoHealth. Darlington, I hear you're doing a plethora of things. I can only imagine. Can you just give us a summary or a little preview to your world? What is it that you're engaging in? How are you changing things? And how are you making this world a better place?
Right. So yes, we have a few companies across a few sectors. There's minoHealth AI Labs, where essentially since 2016, 17, we've been leveraging AI to address health challenges. So currently we have a platform called Moremi AI, which helps to address several medical tasks. So the AI system could be used for screening, diagnosis, triage, treatment planning, prescription, and the list goes on and on. It can be used by doctors as a medical assistant, or it could be used by the general public as a tool for medical education or to answer some medical questions that they have. We also work in biology, where we leverage AI to design drugs. Then, with our other companies, we apply AI to enterprise, to agriculture, and then we also do AI training, AI policy work. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds like a lot. So let's go into AI. Very interesting phenomenon. Very interesting area that has taken the world by storm. Now, someone to know, can AI diagnose you better than a doctor? Is it ever going to replace doctors?
Well, the question if AI can diagnose you better than a doctor is loaded because there's a lot of data and metrics that point in different directions depending on what you're looking at, right? Diagnosing someone by interpreting medical images is different from doing it for microscopy, doing it for radiology, or doing lab analysis or just looking at them and doing differential diagnosis based on the reported symptoms. So collectively, no, especially now, you still definitely need a human in the loop. You still need a medical doctor to have the final say. But there's a lot of specific areas where the AI even outperforms doctors. I mean, we did a study on our AI system. This is even as far back as what I think at this point it's like 4 years ago, and we tested it right here in Ghana. We took a group of radiologists and tested our AI system ability to pick up some conditions like cardiomegaly and pleural effusion. And the AI system outperformed individual doctors that had even up to 20 years experience. But when the doctors work in groups of four or even five, that's when they match the performance of the AI system. But those are specific tasks. There are also a bunch of tasks that the AI system makes mistakes that doctors do not make. So it's not a good comparison to put them head to head. It's more of how do you empower doctors to leverage AI systems. Yeah.
Wow, that's some powerful stuff. Would you trust an AI therapist? Though?
When we say therapists, like psychotherapists,
Yeah.
yes, yes. I mean, depending on the maturity of the technologies, for now, I would say AI systems are very well knowledge about the human condition, if you will. I think a lot of people already use AI system for even hours. You can use it for that purpose. So it's generally giving you very sound advice. So I would take those advice now. But then again, if it's a much more severe scenario, I would always fall back on an actual licensed and trained therapist. Yes.
But would you say that they can really understand human emotion though?
Yes. I mean, we put too much premium on human emotion, still just data. I mean, there's a lot of studies that are even showing that AI systems, whenever you do blinded study and people have conversations with either a specialist or an AI system, when they have to grade who was nicer to them, who was much more concerned and built rapport with them, coincidentally they rank the AI system higher. Yeah, because AI systems don't get tired. They can be nice to people 24/7. Human beings, you are nice, and then after the stress piles up, your niceness sort of goes downhill. So, yes, AI systems definitely are able to process our emotion because our emotion is data. Of course, we've currently locked them up in a case where the only way they interact with us is based on text or voice. So they can't tell when you're frowning your face, but that's not really some sort of like technically unsolvable problem. I mean, with a camera, even with a bunch of AI studios, if you turn on the camera and you are engaging with it and you ask it, do I look unhappy or something, it would let you know that based on your facial expression, looks like you are angry or all of that. So it's just a matter of time that we'll have full blown conversations with them and they will better process our emotions than even our fellow humans.
What happens when AI prescribes the wrong drug?
Yeah, so that one is a complex medical legal scenario. What happens is that, so if you notice, everything I've been saying is under the context of AI systems need the supervision of medical doctors. So AI systems should not be prescribing drugs without a medical doctor approving it. So essentially, if you are using a scenario where an AI system is prescribing a drug and it is wrong, first of all, you broke the law by even allowing AI system to prescribe drugs without the intervention of a medical doctor. There are health regulations and you are in huge breach of it. So before it gets to that point of whether the AI system misprescribed or not, you've already broken the law. So yes, for now, the AI system can basically come up with a prescriptive draft, and then the medical doctor can sign off on it. And so if the medical doctor signs off on it and there's any issue, of course, the medical doctor takes responsibility because they signed off on it.
Interesting. So now we have responsibility for the AI. Okay. Could AI predict your death date?
Yes, based on it's probabilistic in a lot of sense. So you can look at, so there's something we do which is called what prognosis. So currently we actually have this capable within Moremi AI, where if someone has some severe condition, let's say cancer, based on certain biopsy analysis, if you pass it to the AI system, it could tell you that at this point the cancer is so much bad, maximum the patient has 6 months to live. Or it might be that someone has some genetic conditions. You can pass in your gene data to the AI system and it could come up with a clinical report. So it is possible to predict that, but most importantly, it's possible to predict how to at least push that date much further. So if there are any issues, I could recommend things you could do to at least reduce your chances of passing away. But again, this is probabilistic. It's not down. The margin of error is always high. Even with medical doctors, if they tell you that looking at your condition, you only have 1 year to live, there are a lot of people who say, "Well, they told me that 10 years ago, and I'm still alive." The human biology is very complex, so you can predict it to some degree of accuracy. Yeah.
Now, I know AI creates a virtual clone of your body to test treatments before you take them in some cases or in some places. But are digital twins the future of medicine?
Yes, to some degree. Yes, to some degree. Yes, there's a lot of advantage of essentially being able to digitally replicate what you are and then doing some sort of perturbations to that and see what it results in. Um, the advantage of that is if right now, based on so whatever medicine we buy at the pharmacy, before they are approved, they usually have to go through testing and they have to pass a certain degree of performance to be allowed to be sold to the general public. But then the thing is, when they say a medicine has 98% efficacy,
Yes.
right? That is a good thing. But that's 98% on the average of all of us. You might be in that 2%. And so there's another drug that might have 70% efficacy, which seem much worse than the 98%, but only seem worse on an average. You might be part of the 2% that mistakenly the 70% has a 99.99 success rate for you. But all of these things are too complex, so we can't just start giving out medications like candies and see what happens. But if we can create a digital twin of you, we can look at every pool of therapeutic candidates, drug candidates that are available, the ones that are proven, even the ones that are in clinical trial, and then see how your biology react to it. Because it's a digital clone of you, we are not harming you, the person. So if digitally we see how this drug reacts to you and it has, bad effects, then we don't give it to you. But if we test 10, 20 different drugs and we realize that for this drug, You might uniquely just be the only person on this planet that this drug works for 10 times better than any other drug will work for treating of that condition. So we get more personalized medicine if we get to this point of advancement. Yes.
That is until people start now fighting for the rights of the top group and saying that they are human beings too.
Exactly. So yes, there are a lot of ethical issues that will be brought up by then. Yes.
Speaking of ethical issues, there are those that believe that hospitals are selling anonymized patient records to tech firms. Is this ethical? And is it true?
Well, is it true? Yes, but it's not. It's not like some conspiracy or anything like that. So what generally happens is this. You see, the thing about ethics is tricky. Not ethics does not always causally or 100% match with what regulations and laws are. The law in most countries actually says that if you go to the hospital, your medical data that is generated is the property of the hospital and not you, the individual. They could give you access, but that's not yours. It's they are in ownership of it, which means that now revealing your personal identifiable information is usually against data protection laws in most countries. So that's a different scenario. But once they anonymize it, a lot of hospitals can actually give out that data. And this, so it's like data market. It's a huge business. So hospitals, health facilities partner with some of these companies that would connect big pharma companies in the West that want to get access to data from Africa and Asia, whatever the case is. So it does happen. But then again, so if you ask, is it ethical? This is double-sided. So the things that are done with this data is usually in benefit of humanity because pharma companies are using this data to then come up with new drugs that we all benefit from. And also is the feasibility of the alternative. So some person could say that why so there are certain countries that will pass policy that says that your medical data is yours and therefore if the hospital or anyone wants to have access to it, they need to ask your permission directly, not the hospital. But then let me paint a scenario. You want to train an AI system with half of Ghana's population's medical data. That's what, about 15 million. Is it really practical to call 15 million people on the phone or go to the homes of 15 million people to directly ask them that, do we have access to your data? That's in Ghana, let's be realistic, that would be 100-year project. If you ever even manage to do it, it's not feasible. So it's easier to go to the health facilities and then get that data. But it's not just going to the health facilities and getting that. There's ethical approval that is involved. There's data protection laws. You have to be certified by data protection agency as a data collector, a data processor. So there's a lot of ways to ensure
that the data is also exported, right?
Right.
Without the name or
exactly. Because that's illegal to actually do that. Once you start processing people's personal identifiable information, you can be sued for it. But there's also right to access, right to deletion, which is that as a patient you can always call. It's a bit different in healthcare, but in general you can actually call whoever has your data, even in Ghana, and tell them that delete it. And if you don't delete it, you can sue them for it because the data protection law says you have that right to deletion. So yeah, it's a bit of a murky scenario. The most important thing is that however we are doing this, we need to prioritize privacy and security. So personal identifiable information, especially for AI. If you're training AI systems, AI systems don't need to know the name of people. They just need to know the unique medical attributes. And so instead of Darlington Akogo, it could just be patient A or some ID, random character XYZW, and that's fine. Yeah.
Can AI cure aging? Because there are cases where we say AI has been, on the Da Vinci, what's it called? They've been basically startups like Ultra Labs and so have been using AI to reverse cellular aging and things like that.
Yeah, so when it comes to aging, there's different things that you can look at. One way of looking at it is it's like engineering, right? In this case, it's biological engineering, but it's still engineering. what happens is that over time, if you have a car, over time there's wear and tear to it, and then the car gets damaged. That's basically what happens with aging. Every day, your cells, you basically grow new cells. But then over time, you're not growing enough new cells to replace the damaged cells. And that is what aging is. There are different ways of looking at it. You could potentially use AI systems to better understand how to essentially achieve some form of cellular regeneration in a much more rapid pace. So that's possible. You could use AI to also come up with novel drugs, right? So, like what we do in our biology process, we use AI to come up with new drugs, antibodies, vaccines. If you realize that there are specific targets in the human body that regulate aging, you can introduce a new drug that would perturb that in the direction you want. So, yes, there are a lot of drugs that are coming up that are supposed to slow down aging. They don't reverse it yet. But then potentially with AI, the reason why this matters is that if you look at chemical space, if I remember correctly, the number of possible drug combinations, so possible molecules, they are more than there is like what the sand on the beaches of the world, or even what then there are planets in the universe. It's a staggering number, which means that human beings we cannot perfectly pick out from that complex huge space what is the perfect drug that will reverse aging. But potentially with AI, one, you can better understand the aging mechanism because we don't fully understand it yet. But then we can also better understand how to regulate how cells work. So we can come up with a perfect drug that will go into the system and regulate this. I mean, but then there's a lot of evidence in nature. There are jellyfishes that live for even up to millions of years. Essentially, they are immortal. They are called immortal jellyfish. We have like salamanders that you can cut out any body part and you regrow it back. Even their brain, if you cut it off, you regrow it. As human beings, if I lose a finger, that's it. I don't grow a finger back, but I grow nails back. So it's engineering, and once you treat it like purely data, AI sims can go in there and then not only reverse aging but allow us to even regrow whole arms and organs and everything. So because what happens is that when you are 80 years, essentially all your organs start to fail because entropy or wear and tear has caught up with them. But then if you can regrow it, then you can regrow it to as young as when you were a teenager. So yes, it's just an AI driven scientific discovery away that we achieve something like this. Yeah.
Now, Neuralink's AI can decode thoughts. Is it possible that it could run the infinite memory? For example, could AI hack your brain?
Yes. I mean, there's well, there's different ways of hacking your brain. So the thing is that we have, as human beings, we have input and output devices. When you're watching a screen, it's still heading into your brain, right? If you watch people who join a cult, you can basically term it as they've basically been hacked by externally. Brainwashed, yes. So even today, without AI interfacing directly with your brain, there's a lot of proof that they have superhuman persuasion skills, right? There was what they call Bing Sydney, where ChatGPT, a version of it, was trying to convince a journalist to divorce their wife and come be with the AI system. So,
I think they also got a little boy to kill himself or something. Right?
wow, yeah. So it's a lot of scary stuff. And this is happening without it directly even interfacing with your brain, which means that at least you have some intermediate process to ask, am I being brainwashed? Or if it's computer, I will say, am I being hacked? Now, if you directly interfaces with your brain, for the most part right now, Neuralink is doing output signals and not input signals. So it's trying to read brain waves and then do things externally. So if it's controlling the computer, controlling stuff, but there's a lot of brain computer interface devices that are sending signals to the brain. So it will be the same way as the way your eye sends signals to your brain, or when you pick up something, the way the touch, the sense of the sensation goes to your brain, you can directly feed that. And then once that happens, yes, it's possible to have AI systems that would directly hack and brainwash you. There's actually a funny episode of what is it called? Black Mirror. The new season is our season 7. In the first episode, there's a lady that had brain damage. And so the hospitals told her that they couldn't fix it, it's too late. So they told her husband that she's going to be unconscious for the rest of her life. However, there's an advanced startup that could help. What the startup did was essentially they cut out the part of the brain that was damaged and then replicate it but put it on a server in the cloud. Then they put a tech device in your brain that essentially over Wi-Fi you are communicating with your brain in the cloud. And they did the surgery for free and they were charging her $300, which seemed free. But then they started adding all types of service. You can't leave the town you are in unless you upgrade to the pro plan. So if you try living, you just get disconnected and then you just go numb like this because you've lost access to your brain in the cloud. Then it got to a part where they started running ads. So she'll be teaching, she's a teacher, she'll be teaching, and all of a sudden she's talking about teaching kids about bees and honey, and then she starts talking about, oh, you should buy this honey product, and she has no idea about it. So yeah,
Oh my
like
goodness, that's a reality right there.
yeah, scary things like that could happen if we don't use technology much for the better of humanity. Yes.
So talking about scary things, let's look at this dystopian risk. Our governments already ration care in some hospitals. Will AI prioritize costs over lives? So basically, what if AI decides you're too expensive to treat?
Well, that is entirely based on okay. So right now, when we train AI systems, there is some sort of like process we call alignment training, which is you try to align the AI system to the values that matter to you, and there are different values you use. So right now, based on the alignment training we do for a lot of AI systems, if you ask them today, they'll prioritize safety over money. That's because we've aligned them. And so for it to prioritize cost over money, over human life, we would have to train it by telling it that essentially make money at all cost, even at the expense of other people's life. Which ideally, I don't think any good actor would want to do that. We all understand that like an untethered drive towards making money never leads to good. So but of course, bad actors can do that. But then if someone, a bad actor built an AI system, generally I don't think it would end up in the hospital unless they had a. So yeah, I don't see the scenario where an AI system is saying that let's end someone's life because of course. Even better, what will happen is that so for example, to generate a medical report today, it can cost you in different parts of the world from $3 to as high as $400. In Ghana, it's like $3 to let's say $100. With our AI system, it actually costs just 10 cents. So you're actually bringing down the cost of care. And so, as we get more powerful AI systems, they should be able to take different people and say that, okay, if this person can afford this healthcare, how do we make sure we save their life by spending less? So, they should come up with better strategies that require less cost. Yeah.
So you're talking to policymakers, you're talking to other tech enthusiasts, you're talking to coders, developers, you're talking to the public, people, patients, people who may be scared of staying healthy, people who will be decision makers tomorrow. What are your last words from them?
Yeah. So, my last words would be we are the luckiest group of humans in the history of humans. And the generation that come after us will be luckier than we are, but we are currently luckier than every other generation. People have died for diseases that we have essentially eradicated today. like bubonic plague and things like that. At some point, it wiped out tens and even close to hundreds of millions of people. And we now live in a time where we can essentially not worry about that. But then we are in the early days of a time where we saw one of the major issues in healthcare, which is that there's a shortage of specialists. But this is not just a healthcare problem. In a lot of sectors, having experts readily available is very important, and we don't have that. With AI, we are at a point where we can digitize intelligence itself, and the cost of intelligence is coming down. The implications of this is something that is going to be so different from anything that has ever happened in human history. But we have to act. Right in this conversation, we talked about positive and negative scenarios. So we have to be proactive in making sure we are leveraging the good scenarios. And in healthcare, that would be the difference between life and death. So if we double down on implementing AI systems, using AI systems, there are several lives that we are losing today that we might not lose because of it. So we are definitely in the luckiest era in human times, and let's make sure we use AI and advanced technology fully to improve the human condition. Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for all the insights.